Good evening and welcome. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host, and here we are fight to stop CPS take our children. That's what this is all about. How can we stop them taking our children? They have a bad habit of putting our children always in imminent danger that they have to take our children so they can open up a CPS case so they get their money. It's a money business. It's $1 billion business. I want to be a heads up with you. I've talked to over 500 people right now in different states, and I've been doing this for quite some time. And we had a guest here, Linda. I don't know where you went. If you're still around, I'd love to have you. Anyway, maybe Grace can track her down here. But I hope everybody's having a good evening. It's the dinner hours sometimes, so it's kind of hard for people here. But let me see if I can track down. This is an interactive podcast. What that means is there's several ways you can interact with this podcast. One, you can do it by texting. If you want to text me a message, I can read it, and I will put your comments up so everybody else can read it. And all I ask you is you tell me the state you're coming from. Now, we do get people from other countries. Today we had Nova Scotia, the second time we've had Nova Scotia from Canada. We've also had Australia, United Kingdom, Ghana, Mexico, and also a new one from Mozambique. I don't know what city it was, but they said they're from Mozambique. So international CPS is the same problem. The child protection system, I'm going to say child protection system because it gets kind of hung up because there's all different kinds of names they call this service in your area. In California, it's called the Child Protection Services. Other states, it may be called the Department of Child Services, DCS. But then other areas, it can be called something else. So when I talk about the child protection system, I'm talking about where the social workers and the Department of Social Works are supposed to protect our children through neglect and abuse, and also do family reunification. Bring the family back together. That's what it's all about. The best parents are the biological parents. More studies have shown that children do a lot better if they're with their mom and dad. So that's the first emphasis, and that's what the child protection system is supposed to do with your children. They're supposed to bring them back together. You know, they break up a family, and I'm sad that they do, but they do it a lot lately. And that's in my case because, yes, I was with the CPS system too. And so I've had 14 years of fighting them. And so I have some experience I can share with you. But they do have one thing in their mind. They like to deceive you and trick you. They're not transparent, but all they want to do is to keep your children in the system so they collect their monthly check from the U.S. government. It's one of the areas that our U.S. government should look into how the money is being spent. Our problem is the United States, we have a budget for everything, and we're always running out of money. Every 6 months, we have to go to Congress to get more money appropriated or pay off loans or whatever it is. They should look at how the money is being spent in the United States. They talk about how it's being spent in other countries, but they don't look at how it's being spent in the United States. Right now, there's millions of dollars that goes to a Utah cult. I'm calling them a cult because it's not the norm, but they have a religion and they have convinced the government to give money to help produce alternative fuel. Problem is, they've been going so long, they haven't produced a drop of the fuel. But every month, millions of dollars comes into them to help develop it. So that's one way in Utah where that's being done. Another area is that the child protection system is getting lots of money. I know in California, in my case, in Southern California, the Child Protection Services was getting $20,000 per child, per kid, per month. That's a lot of money. And I've been verified because the one of my listeners that called in here, um, they they told me that they worked as a cashier at one of those check places, and they saw a check for $14,000, and I don't know why they'd go to check cash and they cash a check for $14,000, but they were, and they were foster parents, and I guess the foster people get a lot of money too, not as much as the child protection system gets, but anyway, as I told you, this is an active podcast. One way is to text a message. All you need to do is put your city and state or country and city and what your CPS question is, and I'll try to help you. Now, let's say that you want to talk on this show. I'm open to that too. And the way you do it is you call in my work number, 626-698-0990. That's my work number. And when you call in, you'll connect it to my work number, and I'll put you on speaker. You can talk on the show. You won't be seen, but you'll be heard. And that way you can also tell them your story and help other people listening that maybe something you've done, because every case I get on here is really different. It's been all over the place. There's been medical trafficking talked about. There's adoption talked about. There's elderly abuse. Well, no, not elderly abuse, adult abuse. And just when a child was turning 18. But there's all kinds of different kinds of cases. I have one father that lost his wife, and the children lost their mother, and he's determined to get the kids back, so he's camping in a tent in Alaska. He can't afford a hotel or accommodation there, but he wants to get them back, so he has a tent. I don't know how cold that'd be, but it sounds awful cold to me. So I feel for you where you've been. I know it's been hard and it's been rough. My road actually was 3 years when they stole my young children, because I have 6 children. I'm a married man, a loving man, a husband, and I have 6 total children that I've been responsible in my life. And with my wife, it's been 5 children. She's had 2 herself. We've had 3 together, and I had 1 by my first marriage. But, I've been together with her for 32 years. CPS came into her life in 2015. Hey, Faye. I tried to have a good night. It just started, and that's appreciated. Faye's one of our listeners. She's from Richmond, Kentucky, and she's been on the show. She talks a lot. She has an advocate group that she's fighting CPS and so forth. And so I'm glad to have you. I hope if you want to talk or whatever. Now, let's say you don't want to talk tonight or you don't want to text tonight, but you want to talk about it at another time. You can email my producer. I have a producer that produces this show and other shows. She works really hard. She's really good. And she helps me making sure the show is. Oh, good. We got Linda back. Linda, if you hear me, you're ready to come on. We may have a host here tonight. So anyway, you can email her at vincentwdavis.com, at vincentwdavis.com. And you can tell her that you'd like to be on one of Bob Pace's shows. He has 14 shows, 7 days, twice a day. It's a morning show, an evening show. And typically I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time for an hour, and typically at night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, this is Sunday. Normally I'm about a half hour late, but I'm probably going to be, well, I tried to do it earlier, but there's another podcast. I'm going to have to do my morning show later on Sunday. So I got to schedule that in. And on Saturday, I have to do it early. I have to do a show. So Saturday I should be at 7 a.m. in the morning, and Sunday at 12:30 in the right after lunch for a morning show. But I'm pretty sure Grace will help you with the times and so forth. Linda, if you're there, you want to come on? Grace, if Linda wants to come on. Let me see if I can talk to her. privately. Linda, hi, Linda. You want me to add you? Okay, we can see and hear you. Okay, great. But I don't hear Linda. So I'm going to go add you, Linda. I'll add you to the show. Linda, is your mic on and cam on? Okay. All right. Oh, I can't see you. I can't. Well, let me try to add you. I'm going to add you to the stage. All you have to do is make sure that your camera and microphone on. When you entered the stage, did you check to make sure your camera, Linda, when you entered the studio, did you make sure your cam and speaker on? Okay, we're trying to get Linda to come aboard. Good, Linda. Good, Linda. Okay. Okay, Linda's going to log in and log back out. Okay, now we go back to live again. Faye, did you have any questions you want to ask tonight, or how's your case going? What's new with you? I like to help people be specific with their questions. You get tired of hearing about my case all the time. I do have 3 rules that I talk about that will help you with your problems. Now, I want to thank Mr. Davis for producing this podcast. He says if you need help, call him at 888-6582. Okay, you have no case. All right, my case is closed. Okay. Well, I remember last time we were on there, I thought it was. And anyway, I appreciate having you, Faye, because I love all the thumbs up and all the smiley faces and the love and everything you show. It's great with emotes. I like that. That's nice to see what kind of flavor you get in there. So I've told you now that you can text a message, and I can read it and display it and help you answer your question. This podcast is all about the child protection system, the problems with it, and you open free to talk about it. Okay, Faye is working on she's working on a project for foster kids and changes in the family court and system. So that's really great, Faye. You're giving it a thorough heartache. I really like that, Faye. I really like that. Okay. Well, Linda, our guest tonight is having a little bit of issues. I think she needs to come back and put her mic and camera on and try again to enter the studio. She'll figure it out. We'll get her on here. It's never too late. I have about 45 minutes left of the show. There's plenty of time we can talk about things. So I'd like to go over my 3 rules and get them out of the way. And these are rules that I came up with. They're nothing really fancy. This is something that my experience, I wish I knew these 3 rules. I really did, because it would have made a difference. The most important rule is rule number 1. And that rule number 1 deals with the attorney. And you probably say, attorney, I can't afford one. Most of the people that come on to my show are low income, homeless, struggling along in life, can't afford an attorney, and so I'm touching a sensitive area. I had to sell my home to get my attorney. I had to sell my home. I lost everything. CPS ruined me. I had 40 years of working and lost my home. I was 65 years old when they stole my children from me and my wife, our three beautiful young children. They were 9, 12, and 15. And there was no problem with them. They were A's and B students. They were very fun in school. We were very active with the school, active with the programs out there, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, AYSO, soccer, you name it. We were very much involved. But they took a family, and how I got attacked or by the CPS, and I call it being a personal attack, is allegations have been made, and that's really the sad part. When these allegations are made, CPS must believe they're true and must respond in 24 hours to investigate. So it's easy for people, lay people, to call in and falsify things are not taking place. And that was my case. I didn't really know that till I really started doing the show. I started putting one and one together. Because our kids were never in imminent danger, but they took them. They took them. So I wish I knew now what I knew back then. That was back in 2015. 2010, I lost my job. That was the only hiccup I had in my life. And at age 60 in 2010, I lost my job. It was horrified. It was through no fault of my own, by the way. It wasn't because of my performance. I wasn't getting anything. I worked in sales. I generated enough sales. But the contracts I had with the state of California, they were public contracts, but the state needed the money from those contracts to take care of not going belly up. California was just like Detroit, Michigan, ready to collapse. So they used all the contract work. I had about $53 million worth of work with them. I couldn't get credit lines from banks because they went through a terrible time in 2007 where they all crashed because they gave out loans, predatory loans. They gave away loans so easy, and they doctored up the documents, and they falsified things. I was one, by the way, too. I had a predatory loan too. Couldn't understand why I had that there. So anyway, back to rule number 1. If you can imagine open heart surgery, you would think that you're going to have open heart surgery on you, that you'd want a doctor. You want somebody that's gone to medical school, that did an internship, that mentored another doctor and knows how to do the open heart, and work on your heart. That's a professional. Well, I got news for you. The child protection system is like that. The child protection system is very bad. It's like a spider inside a cave spinning, his web around you and pulling you in. Also, you'll know the story of Alice in Wonderland. She falls in a rabbit hole and she ends up going all these doors that go to nowhere. CPS is that. It's not user friendly. They're not there to care about parents or even grandparents. I can't believe how grandparents are abused by the child protection services. That social service organization also does food and jobs and medical, and helps people when they're new to the country to find the public schools for free, and gives them clothing and gives them financial aid and everything. And so the arm of it, the child protection system, is the one that pulls to protect our kids, but they're not. They didn't protect my kids when they were taken into the foster care system through a group home or a shelter or an individual home. They were abused. My children were abused. They're abused in the shelter. They weren't safe. Your children are not safe there. They really aren't. So that's why you need this attorney. And I used to tell people, you want to make a list of 10 attorneys. You say, why so many? Well, they're really hard to find a good one. And so from the 10, you want them to have one thing in common. They do family law. And then after they go through family law, no, Linda hasn't made it back yet, Faye. She's still trying to figure out. It's a little bit complicated. We use StreamYard as our application. We're broadcasting YouTube. You found us on Facebook. But, if you want to talk, Faye, I'd love to hear from you. That is no problem either. So getting this attorney, you need to find one. I didn't get one. And I thought the public defender to give you, here she comes. Linda's back. I don't know. I don't see her camera and I don't see her mic on. So I don't want to add her yet. Grace, if you hear me, try to talk to Linda while I'm doing this show here and see if you can help her get on. So you made this list, and from that list, you're going to have to whittle it down to 5. And you want to make sure they're the 5 that deals with the child protection system, knows how to fight child protection systems, knows how to get the children back in won cases. Well, I got an attorney. I introduced him at the beginning of the show. He wants to help you. He's a family law attorney. He's been doing it for a long time. He's a trial attorney. He has won cases against child protection services. He has fought child protection services in California, and he's done civil cases, violations of your civil rights, your constitutional rights. He lives in Southern California. He's practiced in Southern California, but he will go to Northern California. He does the other states, Arizona, Oklahoma. He does all the other states in the country. And right now, he's offering a consultation for 30 minutes for $49.99. That's $50. $49.99 for a consultation. And he'll sit there and talk to you about the strategies, and he'll talk to you how to get your kids back and how to fight CPS. CPS is a very tough agency. It's one of the worst I've ever seen, worse than the IRS. You think the IRS is bad, well, wait till you have the CPS. They hurt. They've destroyed parents. They've really hurt me so bad. They've made you think there's no such thing as family anymore. So I want you all, to give Mr. Davis a call at 888-888-6582. When you call into that office, tell him you want to have a consultation with Mr. Davis. Tell him that Bob Pace sent you. And also when you talk to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. That way he knows how you found out about him and that I do try to drive people towards him because he will help you. And after you talk to him, you may want to retain him. He is a reasonable retainer, and he bases on how complex your case is, how long your case has been going on, and the location. If you're in other states, it may be more, closer to home because he's got to cover his accommodations and his travel expenses. But he has a retainer, and I don't want to talk about that, but that's up to him. But, call in, talk to him. You have to lose. At least you have one of the 10 attorneys I told you to find. I've done your homework for you. So that's rule number 1. And you'd be glad when you did because it'll relieve you. If I knew that, I probably would never have lost my daughter. You probably say, I lost my daughter. Yeah. 3 of my young children were stolen by CPS on false allegations. They were kidnapped. They were child trafficking into the foster system. Yes, CPS does do child trafficking. They also do alienation, which is against the law. That's where, they downplay the parents and they make the parents look bad for the kids. Divorce cases do that a lot with one or the other will downplay it and do alienation, but you shouldn't be able to do that. But my kids were tricked, and they didn't know what was going on. You see, Child Protection Agency doesn't really, they have a handbook, They have some rules and regulations, and the Health and Welfare Code tells you a lot of things, but they don't follow them. They violate your constitution and civil rights. They do that all the time. But I was having laymen do allegations against me. They were family members of my wife's side who were trying to take her children. They had heard I lost a job, and they were sitting there telling stories that weren't true. One of the family members was a social worker, and her background, she knew what to say, and it was sad. It was the most saddest thing I could ever have. And also, my wife of 30 years found that she was neglected and abused when she grew up. She saw all the similarities. So there was a abusive family, a neglectful family that abused my wife as her growing up, and then they want to make our life miserable. And when you're like that, without an attorney, you're not going to be able to fight them. You're not going to be able to fight them. And the public defenders they put you with are too busy. They have a caseload of 20-some people. And they are really, they really are not in there for you. They're friends of the court. Okay. So there's sad parts of things. I know in, I believe it's Kentucky. Faye, you can correct me if I'm mistaken. There was $389,000 that was unaccounted for in the Kentucky CPS, or was that also Georgia? Maybe in Georgia, I may get confused. And so, the money, it is a money thing. Our social worker was very corrupt. She was young. She didn't have a college degree. She didn't have any classes in social work. How can someone at 22 know how to do family reunification or help out a family? What background? She was not mentored. I think all social workers need one, a college degree in social work. Two, they need to take some type of certification, or a license that you've got to be renewed every so many years to bona fide that they're qualified. Three, they got to be mentored for a period of time, maybe 10 years until they gain enough experience. Maybe 10 years till they gain enough experience. And so, there really has to be some changes. That's what I say, because all my social worker talked about was a Gucci purse, her eyelashes, her makeup, her clothing, her BMW car, and the bonuses that she would get for keeping our children in the system, in the child protection system. And it's a horrible system. It really is. It's a horrible system. Now, I went back and been studying how this all got started and everything. Well, the child protection system has been going on since the beginning of our country, since colonial times. So they have three periods that they talk about. The colonial to 1875, nothing really was happening about children. And then from 1875 to 1962, they're doing something that was called the second era. The third era was from 1962 to the present. And a lot of acts have been passed. There's an act of 1979, 1980, and then 1975, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act, ICWA. And I can talk about ICWA. That's for Native American and children and families. And that's where So, okay. Wow. The month of April is the National Child Abuse Awareness Month. So they've been placing blue pinwheels all over the towns. So my advocacy group has started Foster Care Abuse Awareness Month, paying memorandum to the children whose lives have been lost under the child protection system's care and custody. And so what Faye says is that they place white pinwheels in memory to every blue pinwheel that the CPS places. Wow. That's pretty impressive, Faye. I have not seen it in California, but for people that missed it, there it is. The CPS is placing the Child Abuse Awareness Month, and then Faye, who's from Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky, is placing white pinwheels in there for every blue sheet she does. They're trying to make it a national thing. Wow. Okay, a half an hour is gone in my show right now. I really like to have someone talk. Poor Linda has been trying so hard to get on the show, and we don't know what's wrong with her camera or something. My producer, Grace, has been trying to help her. It's okay. It's okay, Linda. It's okay. Understand. Okay. Linda is not tech savvy. She's trying her best, and Grace is trying to help her. Let me see. Okay. So half hour out. The first thing I want to say is thank you to Mr. Davis for providing this podcast. He wants to help you. If you have any questions, call him at 888-888-6582. He's also a family lawyer who offers a consultation for 30 minutes for $49.99 or $50 to talk about strategies, how to fight CPS and how to get your children back or how not to take your children. It's well worth it. I had him. I wish I had him at the beginning. I didn't get him until I was years. I tried with a public defender and tried to find myself as worthless and useless. All I angry and they retaliated. They retaliated so bad that my social worker threatened my wife that you'll never see your daughter again when she lost in the trial. She was lying in trial and her attorneys caught her. And she says, well, I'll get even with you guys. I will make sure you never see your daughter. So she told our daughter, 12, divorce your parents, change your name, and seal your birth certificate. And our daughter, I guess, did it. We don't understand why. But that was because of how corrupt CPS is and how bad that is. It really hurt me because she was a daughter that loved me so much. She was 12 the last time I saw her. I'll never forget how much her last hug to me and stuff. It was back on May 2nd. It's the last time I saw her in 2015. The same day as my first daughter is born on May 2nd. And so it is hard. It is so much hard in there. I wish I had all the answers. But anyway, you want to get yourself an attorney. Now, if you want to talk on the show, the number's right there, 626-698-0990. Linda's been trying to schedule a time to be on the show, but it isn't working. But you can call. Yeah, I know she was adopted. She was adopted because she was talked into it. She knew nothing. She was brainwashed at the very beginning of her case. Our case involved three children that did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong to the children. But she was, I think, upset because when I lost my job, I had to no longer have the fun things we do, like the Disneyland season passes. We couldn't go there anymore. We couldn't buy soft drinks or cookies or chips. We had to go to a Spartan lifestyle because it's really hard when you have a home and with very expensive payments, you don't have a job. When you have a high paying job and a beautiful home, you have to cut your corners somewhere. It isn't like a small job or I was working at I'm not saying these jobs are bad, but it wasn't I was working at McDonald's. I was working a career job making well over a six digit figure, a quarter of a million. And when you lose that income and you have expenses of $5,000 a month just in the home mortgages itself, it gets eaten up fast. So, when you don't, and I just know that she was talked into adoption, she was forced into divorcing her parents. I know that. I know that she was adopted. But what I did not know is that social worker would do something like that. And if I had the money, I would have had a lawsuit against them, and I would be very well today with that lawsuit. They've violated my life, my everything so bad. But anyway, you can call in at 626-698-0990. And if you don't want to, don't forget you can text some messages. Faye's been talking to me the whole show. All I ask is the city and the state or the city and the country. And that if you want to be on the show, you just email Grace at vincentwdavis.com and she'll put you in one of my 14 shows. You tell her the morning or evening and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever, and she'll come on. So, yeah, your daughter whole name was changed, so was mine. And the birth certificate changed and sealed. Yes. Yes. Yes, I'm pretty sure. Thank you, Faye, for the stars. Thank you so much for all you that help, with the CPS movement. Um, so, you know, um, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a hard thing to be where I'm at in my life right now. I'm still looking for work. I did find work for about a year and a half, but they said, "Oh, we don't have more work for you." And I got laid off. Well, it's hard at age 60 being laid off, good looking for work. At age 65, you're dealing with CPS, and you shouldn't be dealing with CPS at 65. You're considered an elderly person at 65. You're a senior at 55. You're an adult 18 to 55. But you're considered an elder person at 65. Well, when I was working, I was 73. So I'm now 74 years old looking for work. And I still feel forever young. Age is a number, and I plan to work. I work in the field of civil engineering, and I will find a job. And I will get my funds back and bring my family out of the hole that we're in right now. That virtual picture you see behind me, that's not my home. I wish it was. I wish it was. Right now, my family and I are struggling. We're four people living in an apartment, and my son is 24, and my other son is 18, just turned 18, and my wife and I, we're trying to make ends meet. It's really tough because I didn't have time for money for food. It's terrible. Just to take my son to school, gas has gone up now. It's two round trips that cost me $32 a day for gas to take my son to the school. And I get roughly about $40 a day. That leaves me $8 a day for a family of 4 to eat on. And in 5 days, that's $40. And then on the weekend, he didn't go to school, so I get another 40. So that's $120 I have for food. And it is so hard because milk's gone up and everything's gone up. Anyway, those are my struggles. So I've been there. I know what it is not to have food. I've slept in my car, and I had an RX-7 as my house. That was a miserable experience. So I've been there. I know a lot of you are struggling about money. And I hope that you have a job and have money. A lot of you have gone through hiccups in your life, and you're trying to do what they're telling you about in the program. Oh, thank you. Thank you, uh, Faye. Yeah. Thank you for the star. There you go, Faye. There you go. We know your stars there. So that's great. That's great. So we got the stars, and that should be good, Faye. So I have 2 other rules to talk about. Rule number 2 is an easy one, but it's bookkeeping. You need to get a notebook, a blank notebook, and write down every incident you get involved in because you need to. I didn't do it, and you forget things in months. So you get a sheet of paper, that notebook, you put the date and time of the first incident, then you put the people that are associated with the incident. Was it a parent? Was it police? Was it a social worker? Code enforcement? Firemen? Whatever the thing is. And the next line, you put down what the incident is. What the incident is. The incident, you describe it. You may take 1 or 2 sentences. Then after that, you want to put the outcome of the incident. How did it end? Or maybe it hasn't ended. You have to come back later and fill it out. Maybe you have to come back later and fill it out. So, with that being said, the incident is really important there. Really important. But, that notebook is something that would be a tool that 6 months, a year from now, you can reflect back to it. You can mark it up with a marker pen and highlight, the highlighters, and that way you can see if you want to refer to certain things. But it's a working notebook that you keep all the incidents that's happened with CPS. And it can be any incident, that you want to write down. It just arrange it by date so that way you can find it, stuff like that. Now, the third rule that I want to talk about, that I've talked about before, is the most important rule. And that's how we deal with social workers and police. One of the problems that gets a lot of people into trouble is you talk too much. And I do the same thing. I trusted the social workers and the police, and they screw you over. The rule of thumb is you do not talk to social workers. And if you do, it's a yes, no answer. You don't need to ad lib anything after that. Furthermore, if you do talk to a social worker and they're saying stuff that isn't not comfortable with, tell them that I need your name and phone number, and my attorney will get back to you. You need to discuss this with your attorney. You have the right to be represented by an attorney at all matters of this case. So you can tell them, look, I need my attorney present. I'll get back to you. That's one way of dealing with them. If they're outside and you peer through your people and you see these people you don't recognize, don't let them in your home. Your home is your castle. They don't need to come in unless they got a warrant or there's imminent danger to your children, like a crime going in progress. You're taking a child and slam them against the wall, they have them be quiet. Or you guys are fighting with guns and the guns went off. Or you're fighting each other physically. Then the police will kick down the door and enter. CPS will come in and take the children. That's imminent danger. If you're tested uh, positive for drugs, that's not imminent danger. That's stretching too much. You need to go through a drug program and get yourself fixed up. Your kids may be temporarily housed with a family member, but it's not the end of the world. It's something that can be fixed. So if you understand what I'm saying there, just be careful of letting them into your home. It's your castle. Now, I mentioned a thing called a warrant. A warrant's got to be filled out correctly. It's got to be signed by a judge. It's got to be very specific what they're alleged they're looking for, who they want to talk to, what the address they're supposed to be at, and what time and date they need to go in. All those got to be on there. And the same thing goes for children. Do not give up your children. Too many people are giving up the children. There's a case I talk about that a woman, was going for surgery. She let her children be with her mom, and her mom lived very close by in Rhode Island. She was in Boston, Massachusetts. And the social workers at the hospital were asking about her children, and I guess she slipped up and said something that I got my children taken care of by my mom, or whatever they did. And I still don't understand the clarification, but they drove to Rhode Island, knocked on the door, and took from the grandmother the children. Are perfectly fine. They weren't in imminent danger. They wanted to open up a case and make money. That's what it is. It's the money-making part of things. The money-making part of things. So it is sad. Okay. Looks like Linda had to give up. So anyway, Linda, if you want to call my phone number with your phone, you can talk verbally with your voice. There's still about 13 minutes left of the show. And I really want you to follow these rules because I let them into my house and they found something they could charge me with. And what did they charge me with? They said I could be neglecting my children because of the boxes from my parents and the furniture of my parents that I had stacked in my home because my parents were dying and I was consolidating their home and shipping off to friends, and I could not afford a place of storage of my parents' belongings. So I brought all 4,000 square feet of their belongings into my home, which was a fairly good sized home, but it was too many belongings in there. And they said, oh, the boxes could fly up the stairs and attack your children in bed, or the furnitures could walk up the stairs and attack your children. It was some ridiculous thing there. They weren't in imminent danger. They just wanted an excuse of how to open a case. And what I know now, that would never have happened because I would have had an attorney. I would have called up my attorney and had one there. And I would have sold my house or did anything it did to come up with the money to pay for the attorney. And that, maybe I would still have my daughter today. Maybe I still have my daughter today. Faye, are you still out there? I don't see any more comments from you. I had a lot of people come in and say they thank you for the stars. It's great that you support the program by the stars. For all you listeners out there, if you do stars, it helps contribute our podcast. And the way the stars work, if you give a certain number of stars, it's a certain amount of money. So if you give $1.99 is 1 star, $2.99 is 2 star, $3.99 is 3 star, and $49.99 is a 4 star. It also gives you 30 minutes to talk to Vincent Davis. And that's from Vincent Davis himself. He does podcasts on here. He's a remarkable man. And you should hire him. He's a great attorney. He knows the stuff well. You can't go wrong because you will get your kids back. You should get your kids back. Yeah, good, Faye. You're here. I just wish there was another subject. We got about 10 minutes here, so I'm going to go over some of my subject matters. I pretty much talked about the history of social services and They've been around a long time. There's a Children Aid Society that started in 1853 that's still around in New York. There's a lot of agencies that do help. Um, some of you ask about interstate compact on the placement of children. It's a special contract among all 50 states, including the District of Columbia and the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Guam. And what it is that they agree when the children are sent from one state to another state for adoption or for treatment, that the children, it goes smoothly. And so there was this mass group of kids from Georgia going to Texas. And um, there was one kid that got lost in the transfer. And he became an adult and so forth. Now, there's something called 388 motions. It may not be in your state. In California, it's called the 388. But it's the modification of a juvenile court judgment's an order. You see, once you have an order, in the family independency court, you may need to change it. And why? Because you may have new evidence, or you have a change of circumstances that changed. And what it does is that you tell the judge you want to have this 388 motion to have your case heard. You have to make sure that the children's attorneys, the social worker attorneys, all people are served this 388 motion, and that he will in 30 days have you chance of hearing. Your new evidence could be that you finished your programs or you found something you didn't disclose before. But they're used to petition the court for a hearing to change, modify, or set aside any previous court order, terminate the court's jurisdiction. So that's what the 388 is. Now, I mentioned ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. That comes into play when you are going through your safety meeting. When your children are taken, you're supposed to, that first week, have a safety meeting and determine where your children should stay. A lot of you tell me they don't do that, but they should. And you can make a list of family members so they can stay with family members and not foster care. Not a foster care home like a group home or single family. You don't want to be in the foster care system. It's bad. It really is bad. So you make a list. Well, for a long time, the Native American Indians, who are our first immigrants here in the United States, have been mistreated badly, especially in the 1800s, the late 1800s, the 1900s. And in the early 1970s, they passed the Indian Child Welfare Act. And what that basically said is that CPS no longer took Indian children. See, what they do is they take the children, they wouldn't do family reunification, and they would have the children be adopted off. So now what they say, the Indians want our children protected. So what CPS must do is ask the parent, are you Native American Indians? If so, are you registered or could be registered? And they will write the name of the tribe. It has to be a federal tribe that's recognized by the federal government. And so if you're Lakota Sioux, they'll write the Lakota Sioux, and you need to tell them it's in Rosebud or it's a different kind of reservations. And they will write and see if you can be registered or you are registered. And if you are or could be, then the children, instead of being with CPS, we move to an Indian family. And then the Indian families would help the family and the children do family reunification and get the children back with the Indian parents, not with adoption. See, that was a bad thing that was happening. That was a bad thing. So the ICWA is something that is good for the Native American Indians. They're proud people, but they've lived a very disastrous state the last 100 years, 120 some years. It's been sad. And if we had more time or I go there, we could talk about that, but that's a different subject matter, and that's not about child protection services. Yeah, federal time. what has happened is that the federal government recognizes the Indian tribes. They've gone through a list of federal tribes that the U.S. government recognize. Like the Mohawks out east, like the Comanches, the Apaches, the Crow, the Cheyenne, the Sioux, the Navajo. Those are federal recognized tribes. And so that's what that's meant, Faye. But if they can be, I don't know about the percentage, Faye. I've never heard that 25 to 35%, but that is fine. My great great grandmother, two greats, is a full blooded Lakota Sioux. So I know I have more than 35% of Indian blood in me. And the Lakota Sioux in Rosebud, where my grandmother's from, I tried to get registered there, but they don't have records that could not be registered in there. I'm just trying to share the information with Indian families here and so forth. And what do you want to say about the ICPC? What do you want to say about that? I'd love to have you say something, Faye. We got about 2 minutes left here. Well, we got about 3 minutes left. Faye, what did you want to know about the ICPC? ICP is not something that CPS likes to do. I agree, because it's tedious paperwork and it takes the kids out of their jurisdiction. Yes, I know that. It takes a long time. I've been studying it, and they don't get paid. You're right about the money. Faye, you're a really smart woman there. I really appreciate you helping me out on that. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. Okay, they hate doing it in Kentucky. Okay. So with that being said, I want you all to thank you very much, Faye, for coming on the show and for your help with your stars and all the things you have knowledge about. And good luck with the white pinwheel project. That should be good. We really didn't have anybody else except Faye tonight. We have the listeners, the typical listeners here, and so forth. Yeah. Anyway, I want you all to keep fighting for your kids. Do not give up. Persistence, you will get your children back. God bless you all, and you take care. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. This is Bob Pace.